Hey guys, tonight we crawl into the shadows of a house that whispers secrets. A home where every creak of the floorboards isn't just settling wood, but perhaps a step you shouldn't have heard. You're tucked in, cozy, under your blankets, but listen closely. Can you feel that chill that has nothing to do with the AC? Good. Because by the time this story is over, you probably won't survive the urge to check under your bed. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, drop a comment below with your location and local time, and let's see how many of us are brave enough to venture into this darkness together. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You've just moved into this old house, a place with that particular smell of dust and forgotten things, a scent that clings to the air like a phantom. It's an inherited home, a forgotten relative's legacy, and it feels less like a gift and more like a puzzle you're not sure you want to solve. You've spent days unpacking, sorting through boxes, trying to make the space your own, but the house resists. It has its own personality, a quiet, watchful presence. One lazy afternoon, you decide to tackle the attic. The steps groan under your weight, protesting each ascent. The air up there is thick, heavy, carrying the scent of aged wood and something else, something faintly metallic, like old blood or forgotten iron. Dust motes dance in the solitary shaft of light, piercing the grimy window, making the gloom feel even deeper. You push aside cobweb-laden sheets draped over forgotten furniture, your hands brushing against cold, unfamiliar surfaces. Then you see it, tucked away in a shadowed corner, almost as if it didn't want to be found. A wooden toy box, dark and unvarnished, its lid slightly ajar. It looks out of place, not like the other Victorian-era relics. This box is simpler, cruder, almost primitive in its construction. There are no fancy carvings, no polished brass hinges, just rough-hewn planks held together by rusted nails. A strange, almost unsettling energy seems to radiate from it, a faint hum that you feel more than hear. Your fingers trace the weathered grain, a shiver running down your spine that you quickly dismiss as the attics chill. You pull the box closer, the wood scraping against the dusty floor, a sound that echoes unnaturally loud in the quiet space. The lid creaks open further, revealing a collection of toys that are anything but charming. These aren't the porcelain dolls or miniature tea sets you might expect from an old house. Instead, you find odd, misshapen figures, a puppet with one eye missing, and a perpetually twisted grin, a wooden soldier with limbs oddly disproportionate, and a rag doll with stitched-on buttons for eyes that seem to follow your movements. Their paint is faded, chipped, giving them a sickly pallor. As you reach in to pick up the rag doll, your fingers brush against something else, something cold and hard beneath the fabric. You pull it out. It's a small, tarnished silver locket, surprisingly heavy for its size. No engravings, no intricate designs, just a smooth, worn surface. It feels ancient, humming with that same unsettling energy as the box. You try to open it, but it's sealed shut, stubbornly refusing to yield. A faint, almost imperceptible whisper seems to emanate from it, a sound like dry leaves skittering across pavement on a lonely night. You hold it to your ear, straining to hear, but it's gone, replaced by the thumping of your own heart. You try to rationalize the feeling away. It's just an old house, old things. Your mind is playing tricks, fueled by the isolation and the general creepiness of an untouched attic. Yet, as you place the locket back in the box, a sudden, sharp chill slices through the air, colder than anything you felt before. The light from the window seems to dim, not because of clouds, but as if the room itself is holding its breath. You glance around, a prickle of unease creeping up your neck. The shadows seem to deepen, to stretch and writhe in the corners of your vision. You tell yourself it's nothing, just your imagination. But the toys in the box, those lifeless, painted eyes, seem to stare back at you, holding secrets you're not sure you want to uncover. You snap the lid shut, the sound echoing with a hollow finality. The faint hum from the box intensifies for a moment, then fades, leaving only the oppressive silence of the attic. You descend the stairs, the weight of the old house settling around you. The strange toy box a new, unsettling presence in your home. You haven't truly unpacked it, not yet, but its existence already feels like a key to something you'd rather leave locked. Historians still debate whether the notorious Bloody Benders, a family of serial killers in Kansas during the 1870s, used their inn to lure victims purely for robbery, or if there was a deeper, perhaps more ritualistic, motive behind their gruesome acts. Their story, much like the strange finds in your new attic, reminds us that some secrets are best left buried. The local folklore around the Benders suggests that their victims' spirits still wander the land, eternally trapped by the violence inflicted upon them. And speaking of unsettling finds, have you ever heard of a miser's jawbone? It's a bizarre occult tidbit, an object believed to bring wealth if acquired from a recently deceased miser, and kept in a bag of grains. It's a macabre charm, much like some of the items you might find in an old, forgotten toy box, hinting at practices far stranger than simple playthings. The locket feels old, too old, like it has seen countless hands and whispered countless secrets across generations. As you close the attic door, the house seems to sigh around you, a long, drawn-out sound that could be the wind or something else. You try to shake off the feeling, but the image of those lifeless, staring doll eyes is imprinted on your mind. You tell yourself it's just an old house filled with mundane dust and forgotten relics. But a part of you, a small, cold part, knows better. That first night back from the attic, you can't shake the feeling of being watched. The house, which once felt just old, now feels alive, listening. You're trying to relax, but every little sound makes you jump. The settling of the old house, the groaning of the floorboards, the creaks of the wooden frame. It all sounds different now, more deliberate. As you lie in bed, a soft, scratching sound begins. It's coming from the walls, a rhythmic, insistent tap, tap, tap. It's not the sound of a mouse. It's too slow, too purposeful. It sounds like fingernails dragging across plaster, just behind your headboard. You sit up, heart hammering in your chest, straining to hear. The sound stops the moment you move. You wait, holding your breath in the absolute dark. The silence is thicker, heavier than before. You try to tell yourself it's nothing, just old pipes or some kind of pest. But deep down, you know it's not. It's too close, too personal. You swing your legs out of bed and walk to the wall, pressing your ear against the cool surface. Nothing. The house is completely silent. But the moment you start to pull away, you hear it again. A single, sharp click from inside the wall, right where your ear had been. A shiver of pure dread runs down your spine. For the next few nights, the sounds continue, but they change. The scratching is replaced by a faint, whispering murmur, so soft you can't make out the words. It's like a distant radio tuned to static, a jumble of half-formed sounds and voices. It seems to drift from room to room, following you. In the kitchen, you hear it in the pantry. In the living room, it comes from behind the bookshelf. It's never loud enough to be deciphered, only enough to make you feel completely unsettled, like a secret is being shared just out of your reach. You find yourself turning your head, trying to pinpoint the source, but it always seems to be right where you aren't looking. You remember the old, sealed locket from the toy box. You remember the whispers you thought you heard coming from it. You can't help but wonder if the two are connected. The box is still in the attic, but its presence feels like a heavy weight pressing down on the entire house. You've tried to ignore it, to pretend you never found it, but the whispers make that impossible. They are relentless, a constant, low-frequency hum of something ancient and malevolent. You start to notice other things. A fleeting shadow at the top of the stairs, gone when you blink. A cold breeze that sweeps through a room with no windows open. The smell of something sweet and decaying, like old flowers left to rot, that vanishes as soon as you try to find its source. You're constantly on edge, jumping at your own reflection, and you can't shake the feeling that the house is a living entity, an organism with its own dark, pulsating heart. You're not alone, not truly. There are countless historical accounts of talking walls, a phenomenon that historians still debate whether they are the result of structural acoustics, psychological stress, or genuine paranormal activity. One famous case involves the Fox sisters, who in the 1800s claimed to communicate with a spirit through rhythmic rappings in their walls, sparking a nationwide interest in spiritualism. While their story was later debunked as a fraud, the deep-seated belief in spirits communicating through physical means, remained. This highlights a peculiar fascination with the idea that our homes, our safe havens, might harbor secrets beyond our understanding. A quirky, fringe tidbit of folklore you stumble upon in an old book about haunted houses talks about something called a housewight, a type of Scandinavian spirit that inhabits a home. A tomt or a nis is typically a helpful housewight, but if a family offends it, it can turn malicious, causing strange sounds, moving objects, and generally creating a malevolent atmosphere. It's a very specific kind of haunting that's tied to the idea of the house as a living, breathing being, a concept that feels all too real to you right now. You spend your days with music blaring, trying to drown out the low murmurs. But at night, when the music stops and the world outside goes quiet, the whispers return. You realize, with a sickening jolt, that they're not just whispers, they're breathing. A low, raspy inhale and exhale coming from behind the wall beside your bed. It's the sound of someone sleeping, or maybe someone waiting. You lie there, frozen in fear, listening to the slow, heavy breathing of something unseen, something just on the other side of a thin wall of plaster and wood. The house isn't just old, it's a cage. And whatever is in it, it's not alone anymore. It has you. The whispers in the walls have grown more insistent, but now they are joined by something new. You are starting to notice things, small, unsettling things. One morning, you walk into the living room and see the small, antique clock on the mantelpiece has been turned around, facing the wall. You distinctly remember straightening it the night before. You turn it back, your fingers trembling slightly, telling yourself it was just you being forgetful. But the next day, the same thing. The clock is once again facing the wall. It becomes a game of sorts, a terrifying, silent game of defiance. You turn the clock, and the unseen entity turns it back. The air around the mantelpiece feels heavy and cold, a stark contrast to the summer heat outside. The whispers seem to intensify in the living room, as if something is chuckling at your futile attempts. You're not just hearing things anymore, you're seeing the results of an unseen hand. Then, other objects begin to move. A book you had left on the nightstand is found on the floor in the morning. The kitchen cabinets are left slightly ajar. You start to feel like you're sharing your home with a mischievous child, but a malicious one, a playmate who takes joy in your fear. One evening, you're folding laundry in the bedroom, and a pair of scissors on the dresser slides a full 6 inches across the surface. Your eyes are fixed on them as they move, and you know, with a bone-deep certainty, that you are not alone. The air chills, and the scent of old, decaying flowers fills the room for a moment before vanishing. You drop the laundry and back away slowly, your heart pounding a frantic rhythm against your ribs. The most unnerving instance happens while you're cooking dinner. You have a cutting board on the counter, a few vegetables waiting to be chopped. You turn to grab a knife, and when you look back, you see a lone carrot, previously lying flat, now standing upright on its end. It's a seemingly impossible act, defying gravity. You stare at it, your mind struggling to comprehend what you're seeing. A single, sharp laugh, a child's high-pitched giggle, seems to echo from the corner of the room. It's not the joyful sound of a child, but a cruel, mocking cackle. You drop the knife and run from the kitchen, the image of that standing carrot seared into your mind. This phenomenon of objects moving on their own is a classic feature of poltergeist activity, a term derived from the German words poltern, meaning to make noise or rattle, and Geist, meaning spirit. These occurrences, often associated with a focus on a single person or a location, are thought to be caused by a troubled spirit, or in some beliefs, a living person with suppressed telekinetic abilities. Historians still debate whether the infamous Enfield poltergeist of the late 1970s was a genuine haunting or an elaborate hoax perpetrated by the young girls at the center of the events. The case, which involved furniture moving, knocks on walls, and disembodied voices, captivated the world, much like the strange events captivating you now. A quirky piece of fringe lore talks about the tethered child haunting, a specific type of spirit said to be bound to a single object, often a toy, in the home it once inhabited. It's said that the spirit, unable to move on, becomes increasingly frustrated and resentful, acting out by moving objects and making noises, much like a child seeking attention. This tidbit makes you think of the toy box in the attic, the one with the misshapen puppet, and the rag doll with the button eyes. It feels too connected, too specific to be a coincidence. The unsettling energy you felt from the box now makes a terrible kind of sense. You've tried to ignore it, to rationalize it as a series of strange coincidences. But the standing carrot and the mocking laughter have pushed you past that point. This unseen playmate is becoming bolder, its actions more intentional. It's no longer just a passive presence in the house. It's an active force, one that is aware of you, watching you, and most terrifyingly, playing with you. The house is not just haunted, it's occupied, and you are its new toy. The unsettling games continue. The whispers in the walls seem to have developed a new tone, no longer just murmurs, but a low, conspiratorial hiss. You find yourself spending most of your time in the kitchen, a room with a lot of light and a lot of noise, hoping to ward off the encroaching dread. But the house is relentless. One afternoon, as you're trying to ignore the constant sense of being watched, you reach for a box of cereal on a high shelf. As you do, a gust of wind, though all the windows are closed, rattles the pan rack above the stove. It's a sharp, metallic sound that makes you jump. When you turn, you see the cereal box is gone. You look on the floor, thinking it must have fallen. Nothing. You turn back to the counter, and there it is, standing perfectly upright on the counter, right next to where you were standing just a moment ago. This is no longer a mischievous child. It's an entity that delights in your terror. In a fit of desperation, you decide to confront the source, or at least the most tangible part of it you can think of. The mysterious toy box in the attic. You stomp up the stairs, determined to throw the thing out, to rid yourself of this nightmare. The attic door creaks open, revealing the same dusty, silent space. But the toy box is no longer in the corner where you left it. It's sitting right in the middle of the floor, the lid wide open. You approach it cautiously, your heart pounding. The strange toys are inside, but something else is there too. A small, leather-bound book, its pages yellowed with age. Its cover so worn the title is illegible. This isn't just an old book, it's a diary. It feels like a punch to the gut. The unseen hand, your so-called playmate, must have placed it there for you to find. You pick it up, the leather cool and smooth beneath your fingertips. You open it to a random page. The handwriting is spidery, elegant, and old. The entries are not about daily life, but about a growing sense of unease, of a presence in the house. July 12th, 1898, one entry reads, "The scratching begins anew. It is no longer just in the walls, but in my dreams. Your blood runs cold." This is an account of the same horror you are experiencing, penned more than a century ago. You continue to read, flipping through the pages with a mounting sense of dread. The writer, a woman named Eleanor, details the escalating phenomena. The moving objects, the whispers, the chilling drops in temperature. She speaks of an unseen playmate that delights in its terror. She mentions the same peculiar feeling of being watched, of a presence that is both ancient and malevolent. The diary becomes your only link to the past, a guide through the labyrinth of your own fear. Eleanor's words are a chilling mirror of your own thoughts. She, too, tried to rationalize it all away, blaming the old house's eccentricities, but the entity was relentless. One entry mentions a strange ritual, something about a tethering and a vessel. She writes, "He demands a vessel, a home to call his own. He whispers that I am the key to his freedom." The entry ends with a scribbled, frantic plea. "I must hide the box. The toys are a part of him. The locket will bind him. He must not be found. He must not be free." Historians still debate whether the infamous Bell Witch haunting of the early 19th century in Tennessee was a genuine case of supernatural activity or a clever bit of local folklore. The family at the center of the story claimed to be tormented by an unseen entity that could speak, physically abuse them, and move objects. The detailed accounts, much like the one you're reading, often blur the line between documented history and terrifying legend, leaving a lingering question about what is truly possible. A quirky folklore tidbit you remember from a dusty book you once skimmed talks about spirit locks, where an object, often a locket or a small box, is used to imprison a ghost or a demonic entity. The locket you found in the toy box, the one that wouldn't open, suddenly takes on a new, terrifying meaning. Could it be a spirit lock, a prison for the malevolent entity that now haunts your home? And by opening the toy box, have you unknowingly set it free? You clutch the diary, its pages a physical record of the torment you are now enduring. You realize that you're not the first to face this entity, and you may not be the last. Alina's story, a century and a half old, is playing out again. Her frantic words fill you with both terror and a glimmer of purpose. You have to understand what she went through. You have to find out what happened to her. You have to find out what he is and what he wants. The diary is your new constant companion. You carry it everywhere, reading its frayed pages by the light of a single lamp, afraid that turning on too many lights might draw attention. Alina's frantic scrawls have become your chilling history lesson, a grim, first-hand account of the house's past. She was not just a former resident, she was a victim. And now you are too. You learn that the house, originally built in the mid-1800s, was a quiet, respectable family home for decades. But something changed in the late 1890s. Alina's entries begin with a tone of casual curiosity, mentioning a strange draft, a cold spot in the hallway. Soon, that curiosity sours into dread. The whispers you hear, she heard, the moving objects, the shadow figures, she lived through them all. Alina's diary reveals the house was the site of a tragic, but not entirely uncommon, event. A fire, a small, contained blaze in the west wing, the same wing where the locked room now sits. The fire, she writes, was the result of a strange accident. But as you read, a different story emerges. She describes a child not her own, but a visitor's, who was playing with matches. But she doesn't blame the child. She blames the unseen playmate, the entity that was already tormenting her. She writes that the entity desired to consume the fire, to feast on the destruction, and that it coaxed the child into its game. The fire, she believed, was a gateway, a ritual of sorts that strengthened the entity. You flip to another page and find a detailed description of the house's architecture, its hidden nooks and crannies. Alina mentions a peculiar design choice, a small, sealed cavity behind the fireplace in the main hall. She calls it the hollow throat, a place where the sounds of the house, the whispers, the groans seem to originate. She believes it was built with a specific, occult purpose in mind. She also mentions the existence of a second basement, a space so ancient it predates the house itself, a place of unspeakable darkness. This second basement, she speculates, is where the entity truly resides. This idea of a house being built with a hidden, occult purpose is not entirely far-fetched in historical circles. A quirky tidbit from fringe folklore involves the concept of spirit houses, structures built specifically to house or trap a ghost or demonic entity. These were sometimes constructed by desperate families, hoping to contain a malevolent force, using specific architectural details, symbols, and even human remains to anchor the spirit. The house in this lore is less a home and more a prison, and the spirit is its restless, dangerous inmate. Historians still debate whether the notorious Winchester Mystery House in California was truly an attempt by Sarah Winchester to confuse the spirits of those killed by her family's rifles with its maze-like architecture, or if it was simply the work of a woman who was slowly losing her mind to grief. The fact remains that people have, for centuries, believed that the physical design of a building could influence or control the supernatural. Eleanor, a woman in the late 1800s, seemed to share this belief. Her last entries become more frantic, more desperate. She talks about the locket you found, the small silver one that wouldn't open. She calls it a key and a prison. She writes of her plan to hide it, to sever the entities tethered to the house, to prevent it from finding a new vessel. She writes, "I am running out of time. He knows what I am doing. He is coming for me." Her final entry, dated October 31st, 1898, is nothing more than a single, stark word: run. The diary ends there. You close the book, your hands shaking. The whispers in the walls have grown into a low, guttural growl. The house is no longer just a puzzle, it's a trap. And you, like Eleanor before you, are caught inside. The toy box, the whispers, the moving objects. It all makes a terrible, horrifying kind of sense. This house has a history, and it's a history that's repeating itself with you as the main character. You now know what happened to Eleanor. The question that chills you to the bone is, what will happen to you? The final, chilling word in Eleanor's diary, run, echoes in your mind like a scream. But where can you run to? The horror isn't just in the house. It's in your head, in the very fabric of your reality. You find yourself trapped in a waking nightmare, and the nights are the worst. Your dreams, once a peaceful escape, have become a terrifying continuation of your waking life, a place where the entity's influence is even stronger. You dream of the house, but it's distorted, twisted. The walls are not just plaster and wood, but shifting, pulsating flesh. The air is thick with the scent of decay and sulfur. The whispers from the walls are no longer indecipherable murmurs, but clear, cruel words. They taunt you, they mock you. They tell you that you are just a plaything, a temporary vessel. You see glimpses of Eleanor, her face a mask of terror, her hands clawing at a locked door. She's trying to warn you, but her words are lost in a chorus of sinister laughter. You see her hiding the toy box, burying the locket, her final, desperate act of defiance. In another dream, you're not in the house at all. You're in a dark, primeval forest, a place of gnarled trees and endless shadows. You're running, but you don't know what you're running from. The whispers are behind you, a chorus of voices getting closer and closer. The ground beneath your feet gives way, and you fall into a chasm of endless darkness, the voices screaming your name. You wake up in a cold sweat, your heart pounding, your body trembling. The dream so vivid it feels more real than the bed you're lying in. The image of the dark forest, the endless fall, is seared into your memory. The entity is no longer just moving objects. It's infiltrating your subconscious. It's using your dreams to show you its power, to break you down, to prepare you for something far worse. You start to fear sleep. You try to stay awake, drinking coffee, watching movies, anything to keep the nightmares at bay. But exhaustion eventually wins, and you're plunged back into the darkness. This concept of dreams as a battlefield for the soul is a recurring theme in folklore and history. Historians still debate whether the notorious night hag phenomenon, a form of sleep paralysis where a person feels a malevolent presence on their chest, is a purely psychological event or a genuine case of a spiritual attack. Descriptions of the night hag, a terrifying, unseen entity that suffocates people in their sleep, have been documented across cultures for centuries, blurring the line between medical science and genuine horror. A quirky piece of fringe lore that comes to mind as you struggle to stay awake is the belief in dream eaters, or the Japanese baku. These mythical creatures are said to consume nightmares, leaving you with a peaceful slumber. But some folklore warns that if you ask the baku for too many favors, it might not only eat your bad dreams, but your hopes and good memories too, leaving you a hollow shell. This adds another layer of dread to your situation. What if the entity isn't just giving you nightmares, but feeding on the fear they produce? What if your torment is its sustenance? The lines between your waking life and your dreams are becoming dangerously thin. You find yourself seeing things in the corner of your eye, things that feel like they've escaped from your nightmares. A dark, twisted limb reaching from a closet, a flash of a grotesque face in a mirror. You blink and they're gone, but you know they were there. The house is slowly, meticulously breaking you. It's not just haunting you, it's claiming you. The entity wants more than just a home. It wants a vessel, and it's using your nightmares to hollow you out, to prepare you for its final, terrifying possession. You've stopped sleeping. The nightmares are too vivid, the fear too real. You spend your nights pacing, trying to stay awake, a hollow shell filled with dread. The whispers are a constant companion, no longer just from the walls, but from the shadows, from the very air you breathe. They are a low, ceaseless drone, a reminder that you are not alone, that the entity is always, always there. The dreams, however, have left you with one terrifying new detail, a recurring image of a locked door. It's always the same, a dark, heavy oak door, its wood gnarled and ancient, with a single rusted iron handle. It's always somewhere in the house, but its location shifts. In one dream, it's at the end of a long, cobwebbed hallway. In another, it's a door in the floor, leading down into an even deeper darkness. You know, with a terrible certainty, that this door is the locked room Alina mentioned in her diary, the room in the West Wing that was the source of the fire. Driven by a desperate need for answers, you begin to search. You start in the West Wing, a part of the house you've mostly avoided. It's colder here, the air heavy with the scent of damp earth and something acrid, like burnt metal. The floorboards creak under your feet, each step a protest. You trace the walls, looking for any sign of a hidden entrance, your fingers brushing against the cold plaster. You tap, you listen, but all you hear is the low drone of the whispers and the frantic pounding of your own heart. You spend a full day searching, your mind a blur of exhaustion and fear. The whispers get louder, more mocking. You feel a cold breath on the back of your neck, a sudden draft that makes the hair on your arms stand on end. You turn, and for a fleeting moment, you see it, a dark, impossibly tall shape standing at the end of the hallway. It's gone in a blink, but the image is seared into your mind. This is what you saw in your nightmares. This is the entity that's been tormenting you. Finally, in a small, unused closet, you find it, behind a stack of old, moth-eaten blankets and forgotten winter coats. A portion of the wall feels different. It's not plaster, but wood, and it's slightly ajar. You push, and with a soft groan, a hidden door swings open. It's just like in your dreams. Dark, heavy oak, a rusted iron handle. And beyond it, only darkness. The air that flows from the room is a physical thing, a cold, heavy presence that steals the warmth from your body. The whispers stop, replaced by a deep, unnatural silence. Historians still debate whether the catacombs of Paris, a labyrinth of tunnels and chambers filled with the remains of millions of people, were ever used for dark rituals by secret societies, or if their unsettling atmosphere is purely a product of their grim purpose. The existence of these hidden, forgotten spaces, much like the one you've just discovered, has always fueled human fascination with the occult and the unknown. They are places of profound silence and deep history, and what you found feels just as ancient and menacing. A quirky tidbit from fringe folklore suggests that a locked room in a haunted house is not just a place where a tragic event occurred, but a place where a powerful entity is sealed, waiting to be freed. It's believed that by simply opening the door, you risk unleashing the very thing that has been contained for centuries. The act of opening it is said to be a spiritual key, a final test, and a point of no return. You remember Aliner's frantic scrawls in the diary, the fire, the second basement. Your mind races with possibilities, all of them terrifying. You stand there, staring into the blackness, the cold seeping into your bones. The silence is profound, a vacuum of all sound. Your instincts scream at you to close the door, to seal this darkness away forever, to run and never look back. But a morbid curiosity, a desperate need to understand, to end this nightmare, keeps you frozen. You have found the locked room. Now, what will you do? The whispers are silent, but the silence itself is a kind of torment, a promise of the horror that lies beyond the threshold. You stand at the threshold of the locked room, staring into the impenetrable darkness. The silence is a heavy blanket, more terrifying than any scream. Your hand, trembling, reaches for the iron handle. It's cold, so cold it feels like it's draining the heat from your fingers. The air from the room carries a scent you can't place, something like ozone, wet earth, and something anciently dead. You take a shaky step inside, your phone's flashlight beam cutting a pathetic path through the gloom. The room is empty, or so it seems at first. The walls are bare, the floorboards are thick with a century of dust. But as your light sweeps across the floor, you see it. A faded, dark stain, a patch of wood that seems to have absorbed the very light itself. It's right in the center of the room, a grim, permanent marker. This is where it happened. This is where the fire started, and where, you now realize with a sickening certainty, someone died. As you look closer, your light illuminates the faintest of scratches on the floorboards around the stain, as if something had been dragged, or someone had clawed at the wood in a final, desperate struggle. You kneel down, your hand hovering over the stain. The air is so cold here, it feels like an open wound. You think of Alina's diary, her frantic scribbles about a fire, a child, and an entity that feasted on the destruction. You now know the fire was a cover-up for something far more sinister. The tragedy of this house isn't just about a fire, it's about a sacrifice. A child was lured into a game, a terrible game that ended here, on this spot. You can almost hear the terrified screams, the crackling of the flames, the mocking laughter of the entity. The house holds its history in its very bones, a grim tapestry of cruelty and fear. You stand up, your head swimming with dread, and your eyes catch something on the wall opposite the door, hidden beneath a century of grime and dust. A child's drawing is etched into the plaster. It's a crude depiction of a house, and in the window, a stick figure with a twisted smile and long, spindly fingers. Below the house, a second stick figure is drawn, a smaller, terrified one, with a single word scrawled beside it. Help. The image is childish, but the message is adult in its horror. This wasn't just a child's game, it was a child's warning. Historians still debate whether the infamous Bordeaux baby of the 18th century, a well-documented case of a baby seemingly possessed by a demonic entity, was a genuine supernatural event, or a complex case of psychological mass hysteria. The details of the case, including the baby's ability to speak in different languages and move objects, are eerily similar to the strange, poltergeist-like activity you've been experiencing. This history reminds you that some tragic events, especially those involving children, are so unsettling they become legends. And some legends, you're learning, are grimly, terrifyingly true. A fringe folklore tidbit from a book on demonic possession mentions the concept of a blood tether, where a demonic entity becomes bound to a specific place or person through an act of extreme violence, often the death of an innocent. This tether allows the entity to grow in power and influence, and to eventually claim the place and its inhabitants as its own. This tidbit fits all too well with what you've discovered here. The dark stain the child's drawing, the fire. It all points to a terrible, tragic event that bound a malevolent force to this house. You feel a profound, soul-deep grief for the child who died here, a child whose final moments were of terror and helplessness. You look at the drawing, at the desperate plea for help. You realize you're not just living in a haunted house. You're in the middle of a century-old crime scene, a place of immense suffering, and a deep, ancient evil. The whispers return, but they are no longer just whispers. They are a chorus of hungry, waiting voices. The house is not just a prison, it's a tomb. And you are here with the ghosts of its victims and its master. The revelation of the dark stain and the child's drawing has changed everything. The horror is no longer just in the whispers and the moving objects. It's in the very history of the house, a history you've now uncovered. You've closed the door to the locked room, but the cold and the dread cling to you. You feel like you've been marked, a witness to a crime that happened more than a century ago. As the sun sets and the house is plunged into a twilight gloom, the supernatural activity escalates. The whispers from the walls are no longer a low drone, but a chorus of frantic, disembodied voices, all speaking at once, their words a jumbled mess of fear and rage. The air is thick with a humming, charged energy, and the house itself seems to groan under the strain. Then, the lights begin to flicker. It starts with the lamp in the living room, a soft, rhythmic blinking that you try to ignore, but soon, all the lights in the house are doing it, blinking on and off in an erratic, dizzying pattern. It's like the house is breathing, its electrical circuits acting as a nervous system, responding to the growing power of the entity. You unplug the lamps, trying to sever the connection, but the flickering continues. It's not the electricity, it's the house itself. The light from your phone, your only source of steady illumination, feels weak and vulnerable in this chaotic storm. You run from room to room, trying to find a place of calm, but there is none. In the kitchen, the refrigerator light flickers on and off, casting the room in a strobe-like, disorienting glow. In the hallway, the faint light from the bathroom seems to pulse with a malevolent rhythm. The house is a living, breathing creature, and its heart is beating in time with your fear. This phenomenon of electrical disturbances in haunted houses is a well-documented aspect of paranormal research. Historians still debate whether these events are caused by spirits drawing on electromagnetic energy, or if they are simply a psychological manifestation of fear. The Hampton Court Palace ghost in England, for instance, a security camera image of a ghostly figure, was preceded by an unexplained alarm and a sudden malfunction of the security system. These accounts, much like your own experience, blur the line between science and the supernatural, leaving us with a chilling question. Is the ghost using the electricity, or is the electricity simply a byproduct of its presence? A quirky piece of fringe lore talks about the concept of a spirit battery, where a powerful entity can draw energy from the physical world to manifest itself. It's said that the energy can be drawn from anything, from the heat in a room to the very electricity that powers a house. This entity, as it grows in power, will cause a noticeable drain on its surroundings, making the air colder, the lights dimmer, and the electrical systems erratic. This tidbit fits all too well with what you're experiencing. The flickering lights aren't just a random occurrence. They are a sign that the entity is getting stronger, that it's feeding on the house and on you. The flickering intensifies, becoming a frenzied, chaotic dance of light and shadow. The whispers from the walls reach a deafening crescendo, a cacophony of sound and light that assaults your senses. The house is no longer just a place of dread. It's a place of pure, unadulterated chaos. You are trapped in a storm, a hurricane of supernatural energy. The entity is no longer just a presence. It's an active, powerful force, and it's showing you what it can do. The light dies, replaced by a profound, unnatural darkness. The house is completely silent, the silence of a predator who has finally cornered its prey. The darkness is absolute, a suffocating blanket that swallows all light and sound. The flickering has stopped, the whispers have faded, but the silence that has replaced them is far worse. It's the silence of a predator, waiting for its prey to make a move. You stand frozen in the middle of the room, your heart a frantic drum against your ribs, the only sound in the oppressive vacuum. As your eyes adjust, you begin to see things in the periphery, things that aren't quite there. Shadow figures. They're not solid, not distinct, but a twisting of the shadows themselves, a deeper shade of black against the already black background. You see one in the hallway, a tall, spindly figure that seems to stretch and contort as you look at it. You turn your head to face it directly, and it vanishes, a wisp of smoke into the air. You try to convince yourself it's just your eyes playing tricks on you, a byproduct of the fear and the exhaustion. But then you see another, a smaller, childlike shape darting behind the couch. You hear a soft, rustling sound, like the whisper of a dress, and it's gone. These aren't just shadows, they are sentient darkness, a manifestation of the entity's power. They are its eyes, its hands, its silent spies watching you from the edges of your vision. You feel a profound sense of isolation, a sickening realization that you are not just in a house, but in a world of its own, a world where the rules of reality no longer apply. The shadows seem to mock you, to dance around you, to close in. You are trapped in a nightmare, and the dream is just beginning. This phenomenon of seeing shadow figures, often called shadow people, is a widely reported aspect of supernatural encounters. They are often described as fleeting, dark shapes seen out of the corner of the eye, and are thought to be a sign of a strong spiritual presence. Historians still debate whether these sightings are a result of sleep deprivation, psychological stress, or a genuine supernatural manifestation. A notable historical figure, who allegedly saw such figures was John Dee, the 16th century occultist and advisor to Queen Elizabeth I, who claimed that shadowy figures and disembodied voices helped him communicate with angels. These historical accounts blur the line between mental distress and genuine paranormal phenomena, leaving a chilling ambiguity about the nature of what you're seeing. A quirky piece of fringe lore talks about the concept of a flickering, a state where the veil between our world and the spirit world becomes dangerously thin. It is believed that during a flickering, spirits are able to manifest themselves, not as solid forms, but as shadows, as a deeper shade of the darkness, a form of semi-existence that is not quite solid, but not quite ethereal. This lore fits all too well with what you're experiencing. The entity, having drawn on the house's energy, has opened a door, a gateway for these shadow figures to come through. You stand there, a lone figure in the oppressive darkness, a plaything for the shadows. You see them in the corners of every room, in the hallway, at the top of the stairs. They are everywhere and nowhere at once. You feel a cold hand on your shoulder, a touch that sends a jolt of pure terror through you. You turn, and nothing is there. But the cold lingers, a physical reminder that you are not alone. You have not just seen the shadows, you have felt them. The entity's game is escalating, and you are losing. The shadows have receded, but the cold remains. It's no longer just the attic's chill or a fleeting draft. It's a constant, bone-deep cold that follows you from room to room. It's a physical manifestation of the entity's presence, an icy aura that drains the warmth from the air. You can see your own breath in the living room, a ghost of yourself in the oppressive cold. You walk through the house, your body shivering, but it's not just from the low temperature. It's from a primal, animalistic fear. The house is a freezer, and you are trapped inside. You try to turn on the heat, but the furnace is dead. A cold, unyielding metal box that refuses to work. The entity is not just playing with you. It's systematically cutting you off from the world, from comfort, from any sense of normalcy. You notice the cold spots are not uniform. They are localized, specific. A spot on the floor in the hallway is so cold it feels like you're standing on ice. The air around the mantelpiece, where the clock once sat, is a freezing column of dread. And in the locked room, the cold is so intense it feels like a physical pressure, a heavy, suffocating weight. The entity is not just a presence, it's an active force, a being of pure, unadulterated cold. This phenomenon of localized cold spots is a common thread in paranormal lore. Historians still debate whether these occurrences are a result of spirits drawing on the ambient energy of a room to manifest themselves, or if they are simply a psychological response to a terrifying situation. The Brown Lady of Raynham Hall, one of England's most famous ghosts, is often said to be preceded by a sudden, intense drop in temperature. This historical account, much like your own experience, blurs the line between scientific explanation and supernatural reality. A quirky piece of fringe lore talks about the concept of spirit cold, a specific kind of cold that is said to emanate from a powerful, non-human entity. This cold is not just a lack of heat, it's an active, malevolent force that drains the life and energy from a living being. It's said that the cold can cause a person's blood to run cold, their mind to grow sluggish, and their will to be broken. This tidbit fits all too well with what you're experiencing. The cold is not just an inconvenience, it's an attack. You're huddled in a blanket, your teeth chattering, but the cold seeps through the fabric, into your bones, into your very soul. The house is a tomb, and you are being slowly frozen to death. The whispers have returned, but they are different now. They are no longer a frantic jumble of voices, but a slow, rhythmic chant, a low hum that vibrates through the floorboards. The entity is not just playing with you, it's preparing you. It's breaking you down, piece by agonizing piece, until you are nothing but a hollow vessel, a cold, empty shell for it to claim. The cold has become a part of you, a perpetual shiver that has nothing to do with the outside world. It's the constant presence of the entity, a low hum of malevolent energy. You find yourself avoiding the locked room, the source of the most intense cold. But the cold finds you, spreading its icy fingers throughout the house. You are a prisoner in a freezer, and the jailer is unseen but ever present. In a desperate attempt to feel some warmth, some sense of normalcy, you walk into the bathroom. The air is slightly less cold here, a small comfort. You look at yourself in the mirror, your reflection a pale, terrified stranger with wide, haunted eyes and chattering teeth. You hardly recognize yourself. You've lost weight, your skin is sallow, and you have the look of someone who hasn't slept in weeks. Then you see it. It's not in your reflection. It's in the mirror itself, behind your reflection. A dark, shadowy figure stands in the hallway, its form tall and spindly, its head tilted at an unnatural angle. It's the same shadow figure you saw in your dreams, the one you've been seeing in your periphery. You turn, your heart lurching into your throat, but the hallway is empty. You look back at the mirror, and the figure is gone, replaced by your own terrified face. But as you stare at your reflection, it shifts. Your eyes, once wide with fear, become cold and dead. Your mouth, once a line of terror, twists into a cruel, mocking smile. You watch in horror as your reflection becomes a twisted, malevolent caricature of yourself. The whispers return, but this time they are coming from the mirror. A low, hissing sound that seems to vibrate the glass. The words are not in English, but in an ancient, guttural language that you somehow understand. They are promises of power, of endless life, of a new existence free from the confines of your fragile body. This phenomenon of a mirror reflecting something other than reality is a deep-seated fear across many cultures and a common theme in horror. Historians still debate whether mirrors were ever truly seen as portals to another world. or if this belief was simply a powerful metaphor for the darker, more hidden parts of the human psyche. The legend of Bloody Mary, a ritual where a person chants her name into a mirror in a dark room, is a modern example of this fear, a belief that a mirror can be a gateway for something malevolent. The historical belief in a mirror's ability to capture a person's soul or to show them a reflection of their own hidden evil is a powerful and persistent one. A quirky piece of fringe lore talks about the concept of mirror scrying, a form of divination where a person stares into a reflective surface to see visions of the future or to contact the dead. It is believed that mirrors, as a liminal space between two worlds, can be used as a tool to see what lies beyond our reality. However, this lore also warns that by looking into a mirror, you risk letting something else look back at you. This tidbit fits all too well with what you're experiencing. The mirror is no longer just a reflective surface. It's a window, and something is looking back at you from the other side. You back away from the mirror, your hands raised in a pathetic attempt to ward off the evil you see in your own face. The whispers stop, and your reflection returns to normal. But the image of that twisted smile, of those cold, dead eyes, is seared into your mind. You now know what the entity wants. It doesn't just want to possess you, it wants to become you. It wants to steal your life, your identity, your very soul. You're not just a plaything, you're its ultimate prize. The mirror's gaze has left you shaken. The image of that twisted reflection is etched into your memory, a terrifying glimpse of the monster that wants to wear your skin. You feel a profound sense of loss, a fear that your own identity is being slowly erased, replaced by something cold and cruel. The house is no longer just a place of dread. It's a battleground for your very soul. As you move through the house, you start to feel them more acutely. The lost souls, they are not the main entity, not the malevolent force that whispers from the walls. They are the others, the victims, the ones who were caught in its web and never escaped. You feel them as a cold, sad presence, a deep sense of despair that hangs in the air. You hear their soft, sorrowful sighs, their quiet, disembodied sobs. They are the remnants of a history you are now a part of. You feel their sadness most acutely in the locked room, where the air is thick with a palpable grief. You know this is where the child died, a tragic victim of a cruel, ancient game. You feel its small, scared presence, its fear a cold weight on your chest. You feel Eleanor's presence too, her fierce, frantic energy still lingering. A desperate will to protect that was ultimately not enough. You are no longer alone in this house. You are surrounded by the trapped, restless spirits of the dead. They are not here to help you, but to mourn with you, to share in the profound sense of hopelessness and dread that the entity has inflicted upon them. They are a constant, tragic reminder of what you will become if you fail. Historians still debate whether the Tower of London is truly one of the most haunted places in the world because of its grim history of torture and execution. or if the sheer volume of tales about its ghosts is a product of our collective fascination with death and punishment. Stories of Anne Boleyn's ghost carrying her head and the young prince's spirits wandering the halls serve as chilling reminders of the violent ends that so many met there. This highlights a historical belief that a violent death can tether a soul to the place where it occurred. Much like the souls you now feel in this house, a quirky piece of fringe lore talks about the concept of a spirit echo, where a soul, unable to move on, becomes trapped in a loop, repeating the final moments of its life over and over. It's believed that these echoes are not sentient, but a recording of a tragic event, a lingering memory of pain and fear. This tidbit fits all too well with what you're experiencing. The sad sighs, the disembodied sobs, they are not a direct communication, but a lingering echo of the suffering that has stained this house for generations. You can feel their sadness now, a cold, heavy presence that settles on your shoulders. You're not just a player in this game. You're a part of the tragic history of this house. The lost souls are a choir of sorrow, a chorus of despair, a grim omen of what awaits you if you can't find a way to escape. You are surrounded by the ghosts of the past, and you are terrified that you will soon become one of them. The weight of the lost souls is a constant, heavy presence, but their sorrow is a distraction from a far more immediate threat. You realize that you cannot mourn the dead. You have to fight for the living, for yourself. You go back to Aliner's diary, a source of grim knowledge and your only weapon. You read it again, this time with a new sense of urgency, searching for any clue, any detail you might have missed. You read the pages again, the frantic handwriting a chilling echo of her terror. You focus on the last entries, the ones she wrote after the fire, after the tethering. She writes of the entity's growing power, of its demands, of the ancient rituals it commanded her to perform. She mentions specific objects, the old, misshapen toys from the box, a strange obsidian blade she found in the second basement, and a small, tarnished locket that binds him to the house. Aliner's diary is no longer just a history of a haunting. It's a terrifying instructional manual, a guide to the rituals that power the entity. She describes a specific ritual she was forced to perform, a sacrifice of light, where she had to extinguish every light in the house at sunset, a ritual that strengthened the entity's hold on the darkness. You now understand the flickering lights, the oppressive darkness that followed. It wasn't just a random act of malevolence. It was a ritual, a part of a larger plan. She also mentions a sacrificial offering, a specific offering of unlived life that the entity demanded. She writes, "He demands a vessel, a home to call his own, a new life to consume the unlived life of the old." This phrase chills you to the bone. This isn't just a simple haunting, it's a cosmic transaction, a dark pact that was made long ago, a pact that you are now a part of. The entity isn't just looking for a new home, It's looking for a new victim for its rituals. This idea of ritual sacrifice and dark pacts is a recurring theme in occult history. Historians still debate whether the notorious Bloody Countess Elizabeth Bathory of the 16th century, a Hungarian noblewoman accused of torturing and killing hundreds of young girls, was truly a serial killer, or if she was a practitioner of a dark form of occultism. The lore surrounding her, including her alleged belief that bathing in the blood of virgins would keep her young, blurs the line between historical fact and supernatural legend. A grim reminder of the dark lengths people have gone to in pursuit of power. A quirky piece of fringe lore you remember from a dusty book about demonology talks about the concept of a sympathetic link, a magical tether between a person and a specific object. It is believed that by performing a ritual on the object, you can influence the person it is linked to. This tidbit fits all too well with what you're experiencing. The toy box, the toys, the locket, they are not just old objects, they are ritualistic artifacts, tools of a dark, ancient magic. The entity used these objects to establish a sympathetic link to the house and its inhabitants. And now you, by finding them, have become a part of that link. You are no longer a passive victim. You are a participant in a ritual you don't understand, and the entity is guiding you, pushing you to perform your part. You look at the diary, at Aliner's frantic, last-ditch attempt to warn you, and you realize you have a choice. You can either follow the path the entity has laid out for you, or you can use the knowledge you have to find a way to break the link, to sever the tether, to end this nightmare once and for all. Aliner's diary has become your lifeline, a chilling roadmap through the supernatural labyrinth of this house. You clutch the book, its pages a physical record of the entity's rituals. The whispers are a low, insistent hum, a constant reminder of the entity's presence, but they no longer fill you with pure dread. They now fill you with a desperate purpose. You know what it wants. It wants to use the house as a gateway, a conduit for something far more ancient and powerful than a simple ghost. You revisit the locked room, the source of the most intense cold, and the location of the tragic sacrifice. Your flashlight beam cuts through the gloom, illuminating the dark stain on the floor, the child's desperate plea for help etched into the wall. But as you look closer, you notice a detail you missed before. The dark stain is not just a stain, it's a symbol, a complex, geometric shape that seems to thrum with a faint, otherworldly light. It's a key, a magical sigil that opens a door between worlds. The entity didn't just kill the child here, it used its death as a sacrifice, a dark offering to power the gateway. Aliner's diary mentioned a second basement, a space so ancient it predates the house itself. You now realize this isn't just a physical space, it's a spiritual one. The locked room is the antechamber, the entryway to something far deeper, far more terrifying. The house is not just a prison for a spirit, it's a vessel, a living, breathing machine for a dark purpose. The whispers in the walls have grown more insistent, a low, guttural chant that seems to be coming from the very foundation of the house. You feel a profound sense of wrongness, a deep, cosmic dread that has nothing to do with a simple haunting. The house is a doorway, and something is trying to come through. Something is waiting. This concept of a house as a magical gateway is a powerful, recurring theme in occult history and folklore. Historians still debate whether certain ancient structures, like the Stonehenge in England, were ever truly used as magical gateways, or if their alignment with the stars was a purely astronomical observation. The belief that a specific place, a place of power, can be used to open a door to another world is a deep-seated fear that has haunted humanity for centuries. The house, in this lore, is not just a home, but a sacred and profane site. A quirky piece of fringe lore talks about the concept of a spirit nexus, a place where the spiritual energy of the world is so dense that it can be used to open a door to a different dimension. It is believed that these nexuses can be created through acts of extreme violence, emotional trauma, or through a ritualistic sacrifice. This tidbit fits all too well with what you're experiencing. The house, stained by the death of an innocent child, has become a spirit nexus, a place where the veil between worlds is dangerously thin. You stand in the locked room, the humming of the sigil on the floor, a low, constant thrum, and you feel a profound sense of awe and terror. The entity is no longer just a ghost, it's a gatekeeper. It has been waiting for you, for a new vessel, a new sacrifice to open the door, to let its master through. You now realize that the whispers were not just about possession, they were about a cosmic transaction, a dark pact that has been waiting to be fulfilled for centuries. And you are the final piece of the puzzle. The humming of the sigil on the floor is a constant, low drone, a reminder of the house's true, terrifying purpose. You are not just in a haunted house, you are in a ceremonial chamber, a gateway for something ancient and malevolent. The whispers from the walls have stopped, replaced by a profound, unnatural silence. The entity is no longer playing games. It is ready. You feel its presence as a heavy, oppressive weight, a physical pressure on your chest that makes it difficult to breathe. It's no longer a subtle influence. It's an overt, possessive force, a direct attack on your will. You feel a cold, foreign hand gripping your mind, a chilling attempt to pry open the most intimate parts of your consciousness. You fight it, a desperate mental struggle against a power that is ancient and vast. Your head pounds, a rhythmic, agonizing pulse of pure psychic pain. You feel a wave of intense, irrational anger wash over you, a sudden, blinding rage that has nothing to do with you. It's the entity's emotion, its fury at having to wait so long for a new vessel, a new sacrifice. It's trying to break you, to wear down your will, to make you a willing participant in its final, terrifying act. You feel a pull, a magnetic, sickening lure towards the sigil on the floor, towards the locked room. It wants you to go there, to stand on the sigil, to become the final piece of the ritual. You resist, a desperate, internal struggle against a power that feels infinite. You are a small, fragile boat in a hurricane of supernatural energy. The entity is not just whispering, it's screaming inside your mind, a cacophony of rage and ancient power that threatens to shatter your sanity. You feel your body twitch, your muscles spasm, your legs trying to move you towards the locked room against your will. This is not a subtle influence. This is an all-out assault. Historians still debate whether the infamous exorcist of the 17th century, Urban Grandier, a French priest accused of sorcery and executed by being burned at the stake, was truly a practitioner of the dark arts or a victim of political intrigue. The lore surrounding him, including the detailed accounts of demonic possession in the Ursuline convent, where he was a spiritual advisor, blurs the line between a genuine supernatural event and a fabricated conspiracy. This historical debate highlights a deep-seated fear of possession, a fear that a person's soul can be invaded and controlled by a malevolent force, much like the force now attempting to control you. A quirky piece of fringe lore talks about the concept of a psychic lock, a spiritual defense mechanism that a person can use to protect their mind from a demonic entity. It is believed that by focusing on a pure, simple thought, a memory of love, or a symbol of faith, a person can create a mental barrier that the entity cannot penetrate. This tidbit fits all too well with what you're experiencing. You desperately search your mind for a happy memory, for a loving face, for anything that is pure and good. A final, desperate attempt to create a psychic lock. You focus on the face of a loved one, a simple, pure memory of a happy day. And for a fleeting moment, the oppressive pressure on your mind lessens. The screaming in your head becomes a distant echo, a faint, angry buzz. You are not broken, not yet, but the entity is relentless. It pulls harder, its invisible hand on your mind, a cold, crushing weight. It wants you to become a part of its plan, a part of its history. And you, a lone, terrified figure in a haunted house, are all that stands in its way. The psychic assault is relentless. The entity's presence is a crushing weight on your mind, a cold hand trying to pry open the fortress of your sanity. But you hold on, clutching to the memory of a loved one, a small, fragile beacon of light in the overwhelming darkness. The whispers are a low, angry buzz in the background, a constant reminder of the entity's fury. You know you can't fight this forever. You need a weapon, a plan, something more than just a memory. You need answers, not just from a leaner's diary, but from somewhere else. You need to know what this thing is, what it wants, and most importantly, how to kill it. You grab your phone, the battery critically low, and begin a frantic, desperate search. You are no longer looking for ghost stories. You are looking for demonology, for occult lore, for any forgotten piece of knowledge that might save you. Your fingers, trembling, type out a series of keywords: occult sigil, spirit nexus, rituals of sacrifice. You read articles on ancient demonic entities, on dark pacts made by desperate people for wealth and power, on rituals that require a human sacrifice to open a doorway between worlds. The information you find is terrifyingly specific, a grim, scholarly confirmation of everything you have suspected. The entity is not just a ghost. It's an ancient, malevolent force, a lesser demon, or perhaps a dark god who has been bound to this house for centuries, waiting for a new vessel to complete its final ritual. You read about the nature of these rituals, the specific artifacts they require, and the vulnerabilities of the entities they summon. You find a mention of a binding object, a physical artifact that contains a portion of the demon's essence, a spirit lock that keeps it tethered to the house. You remember the locket, the small, tarnished silver locket that wouldn't open, the one you found in the toy box. This is the binding object. This is the key. And you realize with a jolt of pure terror that you have to destroy it. Historians still debate whether the notorious Codex Gigas, also known as the Devil's Bible, a massive medieval manuscript believed to be the work of a single monk who sold his soul to the devil in a single night, is a genuine case of a dark pact, or simply a masterful work of art. The legends surrounding the manuscript, including its depiction of the devil and its supposed supernatural powers, blur the line between religious text and occult grimoire. This historical example of dark knowledge, much like the information you are now consuming, highlights a deep-seated human fascination with forbidden knowledge and the power it can bring. A quirky piece of fringe lore talks about the concept of a name of power, a specific word or phrase that holds a magical influence over an entity. It is believed that by knowing an entity's true name, you can command it, control it, or even destroy it. You frantically search for the entity's name, but the information you find is vague, cryptic, and often contradictory. You realize the entity's true name is not a human word, but a sound, a frequency, a concept that cannot be properly translated into our language. This detail makes you realize that the battle you are fighting is not just physical or mental, but spiritual. Your phone battery dies. The screen goes black, plunging you back into the oppressive darkness of the house. You are alone again, a small, fragile human in a house full of demons and ghosts. But you are no longer powerless. You have a plan. You know what you have to do. You have to find the locket, and you have to destroy it. This is your only chance to break the ritual, to sever the tether, to save yourself and the lost souls of the house. Your phone is dead. You are alone in the dark, with a plan but no clear path. The oppressive weight on your mind lessens, a small reprieve, but the whispers return, a low, hissing chorus of ancient anger. The entity knows what you're thinking. It knows you're a threat now. The game has changed. You need to get the locket, the binding object that tethers the entity to the house. You know it's in the toy box in the attic, the place where all this began. But you can't just walk up there. The entity is a powerful, malevolent force, and it will not let you. You feel a deep, chilling sense of foreboding, a premonition of a final, desperate confrontation. You need a diversion. You need to make a run for it. You creep through the house, a ghost in your own home. Every shadow is a potential threat, every creak of the floorboards a warning. You pass the window and glance outside, and for a fleeting moment, you see something that makes your blood run cold. Standing on the lawn in the pale moonlight is a figure. It's a man, but his body is impossibly tall and spindly, his head tilted at an unnatural angle. He is watching the house, watching you. It's the same shadow figure you saw in your dreams, but now it's outside, a tangible, real thing. It's a cryptic warning, a promise that you cannot escape, that the entity's power extends beyond the walls of this house. You quickly duck away from the window, your heart hammering against your ribs. The entity is not just contained within the house, it's a part of the house, and the house is now a part of the world outside. The whispers in the walls have grown more insistent, a low, guttural chant that seems to be coming from the man on the lawn. He is not just watching you, he's projecting his power, a new, terrifying assault on your sanity. This phenomenon of a spirit appearing outside of a known haunted location is a fascinating and terrifying aspect of paranormal research. Historians still debate whether the notorious spring-heeled Jack of Victorian-era London was a genuine supernatural entity, a hoax, or a series of unrelated crimes by a charismatic individual. The accounts of the figure, who was described as a tall, spindly man with glowing eyes, terrified the city for decades and blurred the lines between urban legend and genuine horror. This historical case, much like your own experience, highlights a deep-seated fear of an entity that can transcend the boundaries of a single location, an entity that can follow you home. A quirky piece of fringe lore talks about the concept of a spiritual boundary, a line that a spirit or demon cannot cross without a ritual or a human's permission. It is believed that by drawing a circle of salt or using a specific prayer, a person can create a temporary boundary that will protect them from an entity. This tidbit fits all too well with what you're experiencing. The man on the lawn, the entity's physical manifestation, is a sign that the boundaries of this house have been breached, that the entity is no longer confined. You have to fight it on its own ground, inside the house, and you have to win. You are no longer fighting just for your sanity or your life. You are fighting for the world outside. The entity wants to use this house as a gateway to our world. And if you fail, if you let it out, the terror you are experiencing will spread beyond the walls of this house, beyond the city, beyond the country. You are the last line of defense. You are the last thing standing between a forgotten, ancient evil and the rest of the world. The man on the lawn, the entity's physical manifestation, is a terrifying promise of what's to come. You know you don't have much time. The whispers from the walls are now a full-throated roar, a chorus of ancient rage that assaults your senses. The air is thick with a humming, charged energy, and the house itself seems to groan and tremble under the strain. The poltergeist activity, once a series of small, unsettling pranks, has now become a violent, direct attack. A painting on the wall in the hallway crashes to the floor, the glass shattering with a deafening crack. A chair in the living room slides across the floor, its legs scraping against the wood. A chilling, purposeful sound. The kitchen cabinets slam open and shut, their contents clattering and breaking. The house is alive, a hurricane of supernatural fury. You run through the chaos, dodging flying objects and falling debris, your heart a frantic drum against your ribs. The house is trying to kill you. It's no longer a game, it's a full-on war. You feel a sudden, sharp pain on the back of your head, as if you've been hit by something. You stumble, your head swimming, and see a small metal candlestick lying on the floor behind you. You are not just hit, you were attacked. The entity is now a physical force, a malevolent being that can reach out and touch you, that can cause you harm. You manage to get to the stairs, your only path to the attic, and begin your ascent. The stairs, once a source of comfort, are now a treacherous obstacle course. A loose board swings out, and you nearly fall. You feel a cold, unseen hand push you, a force so powerful it nearly sends you tumbling back down. You grab onto the railing, your knuckles white, your body trembling, and you fight your way up, step by agonizing step, towards the attic, towards the source of this nightmare. This escalation of supernatural activity, from subtle whispers to violent poltergeist attacks, is a well-documented aspect of historical hauntings. Historians still debate whether the notorious Amityville horror of the 1970s, a case that involved flying objects, disembodied voices, and a general sense of malevolence, was a genuine case of demonic possession or an elaborate hoax. The family at the center of the story claimed to be tormented by a powerful, unseen force that drove them from their home, much like the force now attempting to drive you from yours. This historical account blurs the line between a genuine haunting and a profound case of psychological distress, leaving us with a chilling question. Is the house trying to kill you, or is your mind? A quirky piece of fringe lore talks about the concept of a spiritual storm, a state where a powerful entity, in a fit of rage, unleashes a torrent of supernatural energy on its surroundings. It is believed that during a spiritual storm, the entity can bend the laws of physics, causing objects to fly, temperatures to drop, and people to be physically harmed. This tidbit fits all too well with what you're experiencing. The house is not just a stage for a haunting, it's a war zone, and you are trapped in the middle of a spiritual storm. You finally reach the top of the stairs, your body bruised, your head throbbing, and you feel a profound sense of relief. You're almost there. But as you open the attic door, you see it. The toy box, the source of all this horror, is gone. The attic is empty, a dusty, silent space, a vacuum of all supernatural energy. The entity, in its final, terrifying act, has taken its binding object, its key, and it is waiting for you somewhere else. The attic is empty. The toy box is gone. The silence that fills the space is a new kind of terror, a profound vacuum where the entity's presence once hummed. It's a silence that screams of a trap, a promise that the game has entered its final, most dangerous phase. The binding object, the locket, is no longer in the attic. The entity has taken it, a new weapon in its war against you. You descend the stairs, the chaos of the house having subsided into a low, menacing quiet. The shattered glass and broken furniture are a grim reminder of the violence that just transpired. The house is a battlefield, and you are a lone soldier, your only weapon the knowledge from Aline's diary. You know what the entity wants. It wants to use the locket and your body to complete its ritual. It wants to open the gateway to let its master through. You retrace your steps, your mind a frantic blur, searching for any sign of the toy box. You know it has to be somewhere significant, somewhere ritualistic. You think of Aline's diary, her scribbles about a second basement, a place so ancient it predates the house itself. You think of the locked room, the sigil on the floor. You realize with a sickening jolt that the toy box is there, in the antechamber to the gateway, a final, horrifying offering for the ritual. You go back to the locked room, the air thick with a cold, malevolent energy. You open the door, and the sight that greets you is a confirmation of your worst fears. In the center of the room, on the dark stain where the child died, the toy box is open. The misshapen toys, the puppet with the twisted grin, the rag doll with the button eyes, are arranged in a grotesque circle. And in the center of the circle, on the humming sigil, the tarnished silver locket lies open. The locket, once sealed shut, is now open. Its contents a tiny, ancient, dried-out piece of parchment with a symbol drawn on it in what looks like blood. It's the same symbol as the sigil on the floor, a dark, pulsing core of malevolent energy. The entity is here. Its presence, a cold, crushing weight that makes it impossible to breathe. The whispers have returned, but they are no longer just whispers. They are a chorus of ancient, guttural chants, coming from everywhere at once, a torrent of sound that threatens to shatter your sanity. This discovery of a ritual site within a seemingly normal house is a classic trope in occult history and a staple of horror. Historians still debate whether the notorious demon house of Gary, Indiana, was truly a portal to the underworld, as claimed by the family and local police, or if it was simply a place of immense psychological distress. The details of the case, including a child walking up a wall and a powerful, unseen force causing a torrent of supernatural activity, blurred the lines between a genuine haunting and a profound case of hysteria. This historical account, much like your own, highlights a deep-seated fear that a place of immense suffering can become a ritual site, a place where the rules of the world no longer apply. A quirky piece of fringe lore talks about the concept of a binding sigil, a magical symbol that is used to bind a demonic entity to a specific place or object. It is believed that by destroying the sigil, you can sever the binding and free the entity, often with catastrophic consequences. This tidbit fits all too well with what you're experiencing. The sigil on the floor, the one in the locket, they are the key to this entire ritual. You have to destroy them, to sever the tether, to save yourself. But you are also risking unleashing something far worse than a simple haunting. You stand at the threshold of the ritual site, your heart a frantic drum against your ribs. The entity's presence is an unbearable pressure. Its whispers a constant, deafening roar. You know what you have to do. You have to go into the room, to step onto the sigil, to destroy the locket, to end this nightmare once and for all. But as you take a step, you see it. The man on the lawn, the spindly shadow figure, is now standing in the doorway, a cruel, mocking smile on his face. He is not a man, he is a monster, and he is here to make sure you complete the ritual. The figure in the doorway is not just a shadow, it's a physical, malevolent presence. His form is impossibly tall and gaunt, his head tilted at an unnatural, questioning angle, his eyes, two glowing points of red light in the gloom, fix on you with a cruel, mocking intensity. The whispers from the walls are now a single, unified voice coming from him, a low, guttural growl that sends a jolt of pure terror through you. The ritual must be completed, he hisses, his voice a sound of dry leaves skittering across pavement. You will be the final piece. You are a small, fragile human, and he is a monster, a gatekeeper for an ancient evil. You know you can't fight him. You can't run from him. Your only path to survival, your only hope of ending this nightmare, is to go through him. You have to get to the ritual site, to the locket, to the sigil on the floor. This is a final, desperate confrontation. A battle not just for your life, but for the world outside. You take a shaky step forward, your hands raised in a pathetic attempt to ward off the evil you see in front of you. The figure doesn't move. He just stands there, a physical barrier between you and your only hope of survival. The humming of the sigil on the floor intensifies, a rhythmic, agonizing pulse that seems to be calling to you, pulling you forward. The entity is using its power, its magic, to lure you, to make you a willing participant in your own demise. You remember the psychic lock, the memory of a loved one that you used to protect your mind. You focus on it now, on a pure, simple memory of love and light. The oppressive pressure on your mind lessens. The whispers become a distant echo. The figure in the doorway, your tormentor, seems to recoil for a moment, as if your light is a physical blow. He growls, a sound of frustration and rage, and lunges for you, his long, spindly fingers reaching out to grab you. You dive to the side, a frantic, animalistic motion, and he misses you by inches. His fingers scrape against the wall, leaving a deep gouge in the plaster. You don't have time to be afraid. You run past him, a blur of motion, towards the open toy box, towards the humming sigil on the floor. The figure behind you is a torrent of pure rage, a monster that has been waiting for centuries. And you, a small, fragile human, have just defied it. Historians still debate whether the notorious ghost of Borley Rectory, a house dubbed the most haunted in England, was a genuine supernatural entity or a series of hoaxes and misinterpretations. The accounts from the time, including poltergeist activity, disembodied voices, and a ghostly nun, were so pervasive that they blurred the lines between a genuine haunting and a manufactured legend. The existence of a ghost hunter's final showdown, a ritualistic confrontation with the spirit, has become a staple of occult history and a chilling reminder of the lengths people will go to in order to end a haunting, much like the one you are now in the middle of. A quirky piece of fringe lore talks about the concept of a spiritual weakness, a vulnerability that a demon or spirit has that can be exploited by a human. It is believed that by focusing on a pure, simple emotion, an emotion that the entity cannot comprehend, a human can cause it pain or even destroy it. This tidbit fits all too well with what you are experiencing. The entity, a being of pure rage and malevolence, cannot understand love. It cannot understand light. It is a creature of the darkness, and you are its undoing. You reach the ritual site, your body trembling, your mind a frantic blur. The figure behind you is a low, angry hum, a constant, menacing presence. You look down at the open locket, at the humming sigil on the parchment inside, and you know what you have to do. You have to destroy it. This is your final chance. This is the end of the line. The figure behind you is a torrent of pure rage, a physical manifestation of the entity's fury at your defiance. You stand over the open toy box, your heart a frantic drum, the humming of the sigil on the floor a low, insistent pulse. You look down at the locket, the binding object, its tiny parchment sigil a pulsing core of malevolent energy. You know what you have to do. You have to destroy it. You reach for the locket, your hand trembling. The figure behind you screams, a sound of ancient rage and frustration that vibrates the very foundation of the house. You feel a cold, unseen force grab your arm, a physical pressure that makes you gasp in pain. The entity is not going to let you go. It is not going to let you end this. It wants the ritual completed. It wants to be free. You fight back, a desperate, animalistic struggle against a force you cannot see. You grab the locket, your fingers closing around the cold, tarnished silver. The moment you touch it, a jolt of pure psychic pain shoots through you. A torrent of rage and ancient power that threatens to shatter your mind. You feel the entity's presence inside your head, a malevolent consciousness trying to take over, to possess you, to make you a willing participant in your own demise. You resist, a final, desperate struggle for your sanity. You focus on the memory of a loved one, on the memory of a happy day, on anything that is pure and good. The entity screams, its voice a deafening roar of rage. It pulls harder, its invisible hand on your mind, a crushing weight. You feel your will weakening, your mind a battlefield. You are losing. You are on the verge of being consumed. This is the breaking point. You remember Aline's diary, her frantic scrawls about a sacrifice of light. You remember the flickering lights, the oppressive darkness. You realize, with a sudden, horrifying clarity, that you have a weapon. The entity is a creature of the darkness. It is afraid of the light. In a final, desperate act of defiance, you reach for your lighter, your last remaining link to the outside world, your last remaining tool. You flick it open. The small, fragile flame, a tiny, insignificant beacon of light in the overwhelming darkness. The entity screams, a sound of pure agony. The figure behind you recoils, his form flickering like a faulty projection. The pressure on your mind lessens. The whispers become a distant echo. The locket in your hand burns, a physical manifestation of the pain you have just inflicted. Historians still debate whether the burning times, a period of mass witch trials in Europe, were a result of genuine supernatural phenomena or a widespread case of religious fanaticism. The use of fire, a symbol of purification and divine wrath, was a common practice in these trials. This historical account, much like your own, highlights a deep-seated belief in the power of light and fire to purify and destroy evil, a belief that you are now a part of. A quirky piece of fringe lore talks about the concept of a spiritual burn, a state where a powerful entity, in a fit of rage, can cause a physical burn on a person's body without any physical contact. It is believed that these burns are a manifestation of the entity's spiritual energy, a physical manifestation of its power. This tidbit fits all too well with what you're experiencing. The locket in your hand is not just a piece of metal. It's a living, breathing part of the entity, and it is burning you. You clutch the locket, the heat of physical pain, the light from the lighter, a small, fragile hope. You are fighting a losing battle. The entity is too powerful. You can't win, but you can't lose either. You have to destroy the locket. You have to end this. You have to make a choice, your life or the world outside. The heat from the locket is a physical pain, a torrent of spiritual energy that threatens to consume you. You feel a profound sense of despair, a chilling certainty that you cannot win this fight. The entity is too powerful, too ancient, but as you look at the locket, at the tiny sigil pulsing with malevolent light, you remember something. You remember Aline's diary, her frantic scribbles about a tethering and a vessel. She wrote that the locket binds him to the house and that the toys are a part of him. You look at the toys, the grotesque circle of misshapen figures arranged around the locket. You see the puppet with the twisted grin, the wooden soldier with the disproportionate limbs, the rag doll with the button eyes. They are not just old toys, they are ritualistic artifacts, a part of the entity, a physical manifestation of its power, and you realize, with a sudden, electrifying jolt of hope, that they are its weakness. You realize that by destroying the toys, you can weaken the entity. You can sever its connection to the house. You can break the ritual. The locket is the heart, but the toys are the limbs, the sinew, the physical manifestation of its power. You have a chance, a small, fragile chance. You drop the lighter, the small flame flickering out into the gloom. The entity's presence is a crushing weight on your mind again. The whispers, a deafening roar of rage. The figure behind you lunges, his long, spindly fingers reaching for you. You dive to the side, a frantic, animalistic motion, and grab the puppet. You feel a jolt of pure psychic pain, a torrent of ancient agony that threatens to shatter your mind. But you hold on. You snap its wooden neck, the sound a crisp, final crack in the oppressive silence. The entity screams, a sound of pure agony. The figure behind you recoils, his form flickering like a faulty projection. The whispers in the walls become a faint, distant echo. The locket in your hand stops burning, the malevolent light from the sigil dimming to a faint, sickly glow. You did it. You found its weakness. You have a chance. Historians still debate whether the notorious demon drummer of Tedworth, a 17th century case of a man whose house was plagued by inexplicable drumming and poltergeist activity, was a genuine case of supernatural phenomena, or a clever bit of psychological manipulation. The man at the center of the story claimed to have ended the haunting by destroying a drum, a seemingly mundane object that was the source of all the noise. This historical account, much like your own, highlights a deep-seated belief that a seemingly simple object can hold the key to a supernatural haunting, a belief that you are now a part of. A quirky piece of fringe lore talks about the concept of a sympathetic voodoo, a specific kind of sympathetic magic where an object that is a part of an entity can be used to cause it pain. It is believed that by destroying the object, you can destroy the entity, a concept that you are now putting into practice. This tidbit fits all too well with what you're experiencing. The toys are not just toys, they are sympathetic voodoo dolls, a physical manifestation of the entity's power. You grab the rag doll, its button eyes seeming to plead with you, and with a final, desperate act of defiance, you tear it in two. The entity screams, a sound of ancient, profound agony. The figure behind you vanishes, a wisp of smoke into the air. The humming of the sigil on the floor fades to a low, distant hum. The locket in your hand is cold, a harmless piece of metal. You have won. You have broken the ritual. You have severed the tether. You are free. The screaming is gone. The whispers are a distant echo. The crushing weight on your mind has lifted, replaced by a profound, numbing silence. The figure in the doorway, the manifestation of the entity, has vanished. A wisp of smoke into the air. You stand in the locked room, your body bruised, your head throbbing, clutching the now harmless silver locket in your hand. The house is quiet. The storm has passed. You look at the ritual site, the open toy box, the torn rag doll, the broken puppet. They are no longer ritualistic artifacts, but just old, broken toys, their malevolent energy gone. The sigil on the floor, once a humming, pulsing core of dark energy, is now just a faded, dark stain on the wood. The air in the room, once thick with a cold, malevolent energy, is now just old and dusty. The haunting is over. You have won. You walk through the house, a lone survivor in the aftermath of a war. The shattered glass in the hallway is a grim reminder of the violence that just transpired. The broken chair in the living room, the open cabinets in the kitchen, they are all testaments to the power of the entity you just defeated. The house is a mess, a physical manifestation of the supernatural chaos you just endured. But it's your mess, and you are here to clean it up. You go back to the attic, to the source of all this horror. The space, once a place of oppressive dread, is now just a dusty, old attic. The air is still. The light from the window is bright and clear. You feel a profound sense of relief, a deep, soul-deep peace that you haven't felt since you first moved into this house. The lost souls, the sad, mournful presences, have also vanished. You feel a sense of lightness, a feeling that they have finally been set free, that their long, tragic history has finally come to an end. Historians still debate whether the notorious Sodder children disappearance, a real-life case of 5 children who vanished from their home after a fire in 1945, was a genuine case of a tragic accident or a sinister plot. The family at the center of the story believed the children were kidnapped, a story that has been told and retold for decades. The blurred lines between a tragic accident and a sinister conspiracy, much like the fire in this house, highlights a deep-seated human need for a definitive end, a need that you are now a part of. You have to decide what to do with this house, with its history, with its secrets. A quirky piece of fringe lore talks about the concept of a spiritual aftershock, a lingering, residual energy that remains in a place after a powerful supernatural event. It is believed that this aftershock can cause a faint, residual haunting, a series of benign events that are a byproduct of the energy that once filled the space. This tidbit fits all too well with what you're experiencing. The house is no longer haunted, but it is not completely clean either. It has a history, and that history has left a mark. You are not just a survivor, you are a witness to a supernatural event, and that event has left a mark on you as well. You stand in the middle of the living room, a lone figure in a silent, empty house. The whispers are gone. The cold is gone. The shadows are gone. But the memories remain. image of the man on the lawn, the twisted smile in the mirror, the terrified face of a leaner in your dreams, they are all a part of you now. You have won the war, but you have not emerged unscathed. You are a different person. You are a survivor. And you are now a part of the history of this house. The silence that fills the house is a profound, numbing quiet. The storm has passed. The war is over. The house, once a living, breathing machine of terror, is now just an empty, silent structure. You walk through its rooms, a lone figure in the aftermath of a conflict that no one will ever believe. The shattered glass, the broken furniture, the gouges in the walls, they are all a grim testament to the battle you just fought. You are a survivor, but you are not unchanged. You find yourself drawn to the locked room. You open the door, and the sight that greets you is a confirmation of your victory. The toy box is just a box. The toys are just broken wood and fabric, and the sigil on the floor is just a faded stain. The air is still and silent. The cold is gone. The weight of the lost souls is gone. It feels empty. And that emptiness, that profound, unnatural silence, is a new kind of terror. You realize that the house, now that the entity is gone, is just a house. It's a structure of wood and plaster, a physical space devoid of any supernatural presence. The whispers are gone, but the silence that has replaced them is a reminder of what was here. A low, constant hum of absence. You are no longer in a haunted house. You are in a tomb, and you are the last one standing. You find Aliner's diary, a source of grim knowledge and your only weapon. You read it one last time, her frantic, last-ditch plea to run, a haunting echo in your mind. You close the book, its pages a physical record of the torment you and she endured. You now have a choice. You can either destroy the book to sever this last remaining link to the nightmare, or you can keep it to bear witness to the history you are now a part of. Historians still debate whether the notorious Dyatlov Pass incident, a real-life case of 9 hikers who died under mysterious circumstances in the Ural Mountains in 1959, was a result of a natural disaster, a military experiment, or a supernatural event. The details of the case, including the inexplicable injuries on the bodies and the apathetic search dogs, have blurred the line between a tragic accident and a supernatural mystery. This historical account, much like your own, highlights a deep-seated fear of the unknown, a fear that some mysteries are just not meant to be solved, and some things are better left alone. A quirky piece of fringe lore talks about the concept of a spiritual vacuum, a state that is created when a powerful entity is exorcised from a place. It is believed that this vacuum can cause a new entity, one even more powerful and malevolent than the first, to take its place. It's a terrifying tidbit, a warning that you have not just ended a nightmare, but you have created a new one, a void that is waiting to be filled. The house is silent, but its silence is a promise of something far worse to come. You stand in the middle of the locked room, the small silver locket a cold, dead weight in your hand. You have won the battle, but you have not won the war. The house is empty, but its emptiness is a new kind of terror. You are a different person. You are a survivor. And you are now a part of the history of this house, a history that has just begun. The moon is a cold, pale eye in the sky. The house is silent now. No whispers, no creaks, no shuffling feet in the dark, just the sound of your own heart, a slow, fading drumbeat in the oppressive silence. You're safe now. The thing is gone. The door is closed. The house is just a house. But as you lie in bed, you can't shake the feeling that the floorboards are holding their breath. The shadows in the corners of the room are just shadows, but they seem a little deeper, a little darker than before. It's just your imagination. You're safe. But the silence feels so much colder than the whispers ever did. It feels like a promise that something is waiting for the silence to break. Sweet dreams.